So Jonathan, Danny, we are down here in Gramado, and this is what you call a core leadership retreat. You have 17 of your core guys down here, and this is your second one. So first I want to start, what was the initial one for? And then we can walk through why we're here this week.
Okay. Yeah. So really, we launched the Southern Cone Initiative January 2020. And that first year and a half, I just was entering in contact with people, but I was connected to them and they were connected to me. They didn't know each other because we're talking about a huge geographic area. And so last year's retreat was for me to bring those guys together and say, hey, you know me, now I want you to know him. So we would have a shared vision for what God was doing in the region. And so last year's retreat was just vision casting. It was just for us to say, hey, what is and what could be and what will be. And so it was a reflection on everybody's individual ministries, but it was just for us to dream about what God could do through us through a network effort, really. So
Danny, you were at that first core leadership meeting. Maybe share your experience of a little bit of it, probably at the time, a little bit of an outsider of just experiencing that first.
Yeah, I mean, it reminded me so much of the launch team of a church where people are coming in, they have direct relationship with Jonathan, but they don't know one another. And, it kind of starts out, it's kind of no one saying anything. And then as the, weekend kind of progresses, people get more comfortable with one another. And, relationships start to get built. And for me, part of it is watching the transition, just not even from now until then, but the stuff that's happened in between there. Mm-hmm. So some of the guys that even came to the United States, they came to our assessment center, they were learning things and they were implementing some of the initial ideas that just seemed crazy at the time. I mean, I remember when those guys were like, oh, you do assessment centers? We should do those. It's like, guys, hold on. You can't just pull together an assessment center. I'm like, you don't understand the amount of work. They're like, we're going to do it. And I'm like, okay. You know, sure enough, they start asking all these questions, figuring out how to get to the United States and reproducing and contextualizing it for themselves. And then to actually pull it off was just amazing. So to be back here this time, to see the friendships that have forged on, you have mentioned many times that ministry is so relational here. Mm-hmm. And so to see the relationships, the brotherhood that has happened with these guys where they're literally, they're doing ministry in the trenches together. And it just brings about this passion and inspiration to kind of see. So yeah, it's very exciting to be here and once again, they're now taking their next steps of planning, and I'm just kind of going, oh, okay, guys, you proved me wrong the last time, but will you really be able to do all the things that you feel like God has ahead of you? So even though I'm a little skeptical, I'm reminded they proved me wrong last time, and I'd love to be wrong again to see him do
That's
it.
a good thing to be wrong on.
Yes.
So Jonathan, this is second year 2. Maybe walk us through what the intention of this leadership retreat is all about.
So, like I said, the first retreat was just vision casting and establishing a shared vision for what God could do through us in the region. But this past year, some people stayed, other people left. Most people stayed, of course. But you just kind of have, just like in a church plant, you have people that stay and some people that go. And throughout this past year, it was really me identifying out of those core players, who is who, what are they capable of doing, and what's their leadership profile. So instead of just giving somebody a title and responsibilities, it was a year for me to figure out really who is who. And so this year is really galvanizing an action plan to see us follow through on our mission, which is to plant and strengthen churches throughout this entire region.
Yeah. So I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit. If you could dream a little bit of what you envision next year looking like, what would that be?
So, you do put me on the spot.
We want the agenda right now. So give us play-by-play what we're going to be doing besides eating a lot of steak and Brazilian barbecue. We know that's kind of like, that's a given.
That's a given. We'll do those things. And it'll be an amazing place, either at the mountains or the beach.
Well, I'll piggyback a little bit. You have objectives for what you want to see or prayerfully see happen this year. So maybe walk us through a little bit of that. What you see maybe happening this year, or prayerfully see happening.
Sure.
So I think for this next year, for 23 to 24, our strategic initiatives are this. First of all, we have to reach a place where we're financially viable, okay? And everything has a beginning, and so we do have an influx of some funding to get some things off the ground. but it has to be sustainable internally. Okay, and so these guys know that. We know that. We're aware of that. And so we're trying to build all the systems and processes so that once we pull out as missionaries, this thing moves forward and it's carried on the backs of the people that are involved here locally. So I'd say that's the biggest thing over this next year.
And let me just say something really quick. When you say that, what you mean is, because a lot of people don't get this or understand, but all these guys who've been part of it, they haven't been given any money, and yet they are giving collectively to a fund so that they can get to a part of self-sustainability, that there's not these outside sources. So, I mean, to me, it's an amazing thing, and just it speaks worlds of the guys that have begun together.
Yeah, so like you said, none of them get paid to be here. Okay, everybody took vacation time, and they're here on their own dime. And we've created buckets where they're putting money into that bucket so that we can at some point in time say, hey, this is our budget for this year. Right. So, so yeah, I mean, that's the first thing on the list. I would say the second thing on the list is for all of the main leaders to build their teams. So I've built the core team. Those core team members then are being challenged to build their own teams out structurally in church planning, church strengthening, with the pathway that we've provided for them. Because once again, it's not scalable. You can't scale up and you can't scale out if you don't have the right people on the bus and sitting in the right seats. And I'd say the third thing is it's all fancy and it's all, pie in the sky until it actually works and people are doing their jobs. Yeah. So, hey, do your job. So the assessment center, we did it this past year. We ran a successful assessment center for church planners. But we'll measure the successfulness of it, the second and third and fourth generation of it. So we need to see it move forward at a good pace. So those three things: financial viability, that's important to us. The second thing is teams being built and teams being deployed. And the deployment of teams is the functionality of the whole system. Okay, how well does it work? So.